I know a lot of couples who actually are in this situation, right? Where she out earns him and they never talk about money and they never talk about what it's like. And so I'm curious, what other thoughts do you have on this notion of women out earning men and then dating potential?
Okay. So first I would just want to focus on the women who are making a great living, who are financially stable and thriving and making good money. And let's say they're single. And like you said, they, even though they don't need a partner, let's say this is the woman who dates a man, even though she does, since that's what we're focusing on, is these new gender roles, so to speak. Even though she does not need a man to support her financially, she still wants a man to out earn her. And she could be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if not more. That's a problem. And it's a problem because first of all, I would encourage that woman to ask herself, why? Why does she want that? Because if you want, people associate money with power. The cultural norms and conditioning that women have been trying for so long to break through is that a man is not superior to her, right? So, and that she can go out into the workforce and be as much of a force in the workforce as any man can be. So then why is it so important to you to have a man who out earns you? Like, what is it about that you need that? In other words, why do you associate how much money he makes with his power, and why do you need him to be more powerful than you? And this is very important because it's one thing to want someone who has purpose, who has direction, who has passion, who even has financial stability. But if he has to out earn you, even though you're doing really well, I think that is a very, very old, conditioned belief system that woman, it would behoove her to challenge that. Because first of all, you're going to make the dating pool so small. But second of all, why do you need that? And so that would be something that I would encourage women to ask themselves. Why, in fact, do you need that? Why isn't it enough that the man that you want is driven and powerful in his own right? Why does his bank account, when you don't need his bank account, why is that important? And I think that a lot of women will associate a man's bank account with his level of drive, but that's also that's
fallacy.
It's a fallacy. Exactly. It's not true. Someone who makes less money than you and you're making good money, that's very different than someone who's sitting on his couch all day long, smoking weed and playing video games, or watching porn and having no passion. I mean, that's a vast difference. And so I think that it's important that people in general go for qualities in another person when you don't need the financial support that are more important, like character, like passion, like purpose. Because things are changing. The concept of the trophy wife, for example, it doesn't really exist anymore because most men are actually not looking for a dumb bimbo who looks good on his arm. They actually want a woman who's got purpose too. And that purpose could be to raise children. It's not wrapped up so much in money and achievement, but we are living in a time right now that that what we're most attracted to are people who do have a sense of direction and purpose and passion, even if that passion is painting or drawing, just something that makes the person feel connected to something deeper and more purposeful and larger than themselves. And so, like I said, if you are needing, when you don't actually need that financial support and you are but you're still saying to yourself, yeah, well, you better make more money than me. You better ask yourself that question as to why, because I think it perpetuates something that women actually, if they thought clearly about, don't want to perpetuate, which is that somehow the man has got to be superior to me, and he's got to be better than me in some way. He has to be more skilled than me in some way. And then that's what's the turn on for me.
But isn't that, I mean, it's interesting because there's so many threads that I want to pull on this, and I want to be mindful of our time on this front. But it's what's fascinating to me is, on one hand, we had a conversation around dominance, right? That women are attracted generally to men who are going to be somewhat dominant in a healthy way, right? In a respectful way. And that can be, from a sexual standpoint, quite attractive. And then on the other side,
but not at all, but only from a sexual standpoint. It's not, women are not generally attracted to men who are dominant.
But what are the indicators that a man is going to be sexually dominant, right? Like, I mean, I think that there's outward displays of a man's dominance that show up in his day-to-day life, in his character, in the way that he speaks and carries himself, and in what he does. And so I think there's two things that I could see, and you tell me, I'm not a woman, I have no idea what this experience is like. So I'm curious to get your perspective, but it seems like there's two pieces that are contrary, or not contrary, but like maybe feeding into this. I make a lot of money, but I still want a man to make more than me. One is the like security and safety side of things. And the other one is this attraction point to men who are more dominant. So where do you see safety and security playing into this conversation? And where do you see dominance playing into this conversation? How does that map?
Why do you need a man to make more money than you if you're making good money for safety and security?
I don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, I think
it's conditioning.
Part of it is that, it certainly might be conditioning. And would you say that conditioning has a net negative impact on women?
Yes, because the thing is, she shouldn't be narrowing her options based on how much money he makes. She should be narrowing her options based on his level of character and purpose in the world, regardless of how much he makes, if you're someone who can take care of yourself financially. So this idea is, what I'm trying to say, because this is something that I've had to confront in myself as well, as someone who earns but didn't used to, and was raised with, you depend on a man to take care of you financially. And that's one of his roles in your life. And, that works in certain households when you want to be the mom at home. And I'm not poo-pooing that at all, but why it's incredibly empowering for a woman who's always thought that she had to depend on a man for her safety and security financially, for her to start making her own money. But then then say, if she's making a lot of money, well, now I need a man who's even richer than me. What she's actually saying on unconscious level is that I need a man who's more powerful than me. And I think that has some implications there that are not that positive, because that buys into an old line of thinking that somehow the only way that you're going to admire and respect him is if he has some superiority over you, as opposed to admiring and respecting because of how he interacts with the world.
I think what arises for me is, again, in this notion of like the dominance piece, and I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. I'm like, I'm challenging and poking
Yeah,
and,
I love it.
Doing all the things
Yeah.
that make these conversations engaging. Because I think one of the things that, comes out of that is it wrong? Is it bad to have a partner who is superior in some way, shape, or form? Like, I think, let me explain what I'm saying before, the audience comes at me. I think in our modern culture, this notion of men have some traits that they are more dominant, like physicality,
Sure.
right? Like there's just biologically, physically, men are stronger, period, in almost every category.
Absolutely.
Right? This has been proven time and time again. So there is a level of, I don't think superiority is necessarily the right word there, but there is a level of dominance. There is a level of potency that shows up in that category. And that's a draw for a lot of women, right? For a lot of women, having a man that is strong physically, that's able to defend, that's able to, takes care of himself. That is an indicator of, there's a certain level of proficiency. And so too are, women own and possess and have different elements where they are superior to men that I think creates part of the attraction and part of the appeal. I think that is a part of it, that we each individually have our own elements where there is a desire, a connection, a sort of flourishing that can come out of, you're really gifted in this area. You possess something that I don't naturally. And I love that. And I'm drawn to it. I'm allured by it.
Absolutely. And there's no question that heterosexual women primarily are attracted to strength. But why does that have to come in the form of their bank account when you are taking care of that for yourself anyway? The problem is it's not about how much money he makes or how little money he makes. What we're talking about is a woman who has found a way to take care of herself financially and to be able to say, I don't need a man to take care of me financially. I don't need him. But yet I still want a man who makes even more money than me. And I just want to encourage her to do a little self-reflection. What is that really all about?
As in, it could be an insecurity, as in it could be a fear. Like, what do you think is contributing to that notion?
Again, this idea of I need a man to be superior to me in some way. Somehow it's like there's this double-edged sword of like, or there's two ways of looking at it. It's like, I want to be a woman who's out in the workforce and doesn't need a man. But yet, like, somehow he's got to prove to me that somehow he's even better than me. And I think that it's almost like modern feminism sort of battling old thinking of women that we've been conditioned to believe, which is that we are not as capable. Of course, we're not talking physically, but not as capable as men. And so if you're attracted to strength, the strength has to come in strength of character, strength of body, strength of mind, strength of passion. Lots of men are making, or lots of people make a lot of money and they're weak as hell.
Facts. Yeah.
Facts. So it's just something that I just think it's worth the contemplation. How much of that is your conditioning versus this is just what I'm attracted to? I think that we really, because also it really would limit that particular woman's dating pool. And again, like we've discussed before, there's plenty of men making a lot of money who have very, very weak, low character. So it's also about understanding where your priorities lie. And if you don't need that financial security, why then are you then demanding that they make more money than you? Like we're not even talking about as much or making good money or close enough. We're talking about the desire to have them make even more than you. I think that's old conditioning that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, there's a shifting of priorities, and there's a shifting. I think what's interesting in this conversation for me is that when I pull back from it, it's how do we rely on each other within relationship? And I think what it almost sounds like we're talking about in some ways is this dance around reliance versus dependency. Mm-hmm. It's like, I can rely on you if you make a good living, right? If you're making just as much or you're making a little bit less, it's like there's a reliance there. But if there's a dependency, it sounds like that's what you're sort of pointing at, is that we maybe can stay away from dependencies. Dependencies are part of the issue, or like, does that relate to what you're saying?
I think at the end of the day, look, I know lots of women who have more money, whether it's family money or they're earning than their male partners, and they're very happy, So I think that all I'm saying is that a woman, if she is an earner and yet she still wants him to make more money than her, I think that there is an association with his making money and his power. And I think there has to be a shift to that thinking and a shift to just old conditioning. And I think that it would behoove that particular woman to get more comfortable and open up her mind to potentially being with someone who may make less money than her, but is like still a powerhouse in his own right.
I think the big piece, one of the things that that I struggle with in certain dating advice or in the red pill stuff, or, certain elements of feminism, it's like it becomes very myopic and very one-dimensional, right? If your primary indicator of a man's sense of power and potency and strength is his bank account, and you ignore the rest of who that individual is, you're missing out. Like, you're just missing on, you're taking one data point and allocating that one data point for his sense of power and potency. Just like the quality of a woman, if you're distilling it down to, is she a 10, mm-hmm. right? It's just purely her beauty. Mm-hmm. And that's all that you're looking for, then you're missing out on a huge part of who that person is and what you might want and what you might need. So I think this is great. I really appreciate that insight, and just being able to like also challenge women in that way, to say like, hey, have a look at this part. If this is coming up and you think that you need that, like, why is it? Why is that exactly that you think that you need that? Everybody
wants to be with someone who has some sort of purpose or power. Like, the shift that I'm seeing is that men don't just want like the pretty arm candy anymore. They actually want someone who is very powerful in her own right too. And I think that, it goes well beyond someone's bank account, Mm-hmm.